The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as Jessica's laughter pierced through the crowded room. My sister always knew how to command attention, especially at her own birthday party. I watched her glide between guests in her designer dress, leaving trails of admiration and envy in her wake. "Val, you're hovering in the corner again." My mother's voice carried that familiar note of disappointment. "At least try to mingle." I forced a smile. "I'm fine here, Mom." The waves of emotions flooding from the party guests were already overwhelming enough from this distance. Greed, jealousy, desire, they all swirled around me like invisible smoke, making my head spin. "Look who just walked in." Jessica's squeal cut through the ambient chatter. Marcus Sullivan, her latest conquest, strode in wearing an impeccably tailored suit. The moment he entered, my stomach clenched. There was something off about him, something dark lurking beneath his polished surface that only I could sense. "Isn't he gorgeous?" Jessica gushed to anyone within earshot. "He's taking me to Paris next month for a modeling contract signing." Our father beamed with pride. "That's my girl, always reaching for the stars." I took another sip of champagne, trying to drown out the bitter taste in my mouth. The room suddenly felt smaller, more suffocating. Marcus's presence brought with it an undercurrent of deception that made my skin crawl. "Time for speeches," Jessica announced, tapping her glass. "Val, why don't you start? You are my big sister after all." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing, putting me on the spot like this. I stepped forward, my gift for sensing emotions becoming a curse, as I felt everyone's anticipation and judgment pressing in on me. "Jessica," I started, my voice barely steady, "you've always known exactly what you want and how to get it." The double meaning wasn't lost on her. Her smile tightened. "To my dear sister," I continued, raising my glass, "may you always receive exactly what you deserve." A few confused claps scattered through the crowd. Jessica's face flushed red, but before she could respond, Marcus wrapped an arm around her waist. "Let me go next," he said smoothly. "I have an announcement to make." My stomach dropped as he reached into his pocket. I could feel his satisfaction, his calculated manipulation, rolling off him in waves. "Jessica," he said, dropping to one knee, "will you marry me?" The room erupted in gasps and cheers. Jessica's scream of delight pierced my ears as she threw herself into his arms. Our parents rushed forward, tears streaming down Mom's face. I stood frozen, overwhelmed by the toxicity of Marcus's emotions. Beneath his loving facade, I sensed something predatory, something that saw Jessica not as a person, but as a means to an end. "Aren't you going to congratulate your sister?" Dad's stern voice cut through my thoughts. I looked at Jessica, radiant in her moment of triumph, then at Marcus, whose dark eyes met mine with a challenge. In that moment, I knew this wasn't just about Jessica anymore. This was about protecting her from something she was too blind to see. "Congratulations," I said flatly, setting down my glass. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. As I walked away from the celebration, I could feel Marcus watching me. He knew I saw through him, just as I knew he wouldn't stop until he had destroyed everything my sister held dear. But he didn't know what I was capable of. He didn't know that I could sense every lie, every hidden intention. And most importantly, he didn't know that I had finally found my reason for revenge. Let them celebrate tonight. Soon enough, they would all see the truth. Starting with Marcus Sullivan. The family lake house had always been Jessica's domain, but today it felt like a prison. 3 days of family bonding stretched ahead of me like a sentence. I sat at the edge of the dock, letting my feet dangle in the cool water, trying to escape the suffocating atmosphere inside. "There you are," Jessica's voice carried across the wooden planks. "Mom's looking for help with lunch. Though I doubt that's your forte." I didn't turn around. "I'm sure you'll manage without me. Actually, I have news to share. I'd rather you hear it with everyone else." Her excitement leaked through her carefully controlled tone, mixing with something else, Smugness, perhaps. Inside, our parents were already seated at the dining table. Marcus sat beside Jessica's empty chair, his presence an oil slick of calculated charm. The moment I walked in, I felt his attention shift to me, assessing, measuring. "Jessica has an announcement," Mom said, beaming. My sister stood, practically vibrating with self-importance. "Elite Models International wants to sign me. They say I have exactly what they're looking for." Dad's face lit up. "That's wonderful, Princess. We always knew you were destined for great things." I picked at my sandwich, the bread turning to ash in my mouth. Something felt wrong. The agency's intentions rolled off Marcus in waves of dark satisfaction. "The contract is incredible," Jessica continued. "They're talking about Paris, Milan, New York. What's the catch?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Jessica's smile faltered. "What do you mean? Elite Models International isn't what you think. I've heard stories." "Of course you have," Jessica snapped. "You always try to rain on my parade. Just because you're stuck in a dead-end job doesn't mean—" "Jessica," Mom interrupted, "be nice to your sister." "Nice?" Jessica laughed. "She's never been nice to me. She's jealous, that's all. She can't stand that I'm actually making something of myself." Marcus placed a hand on Jessica's arm. "Perhaps Val is just concerned. Family looking out for family, right?" His words dripped with false sincerity. Beneath them, I sensed his amusement at the discord he was quietly encouraging. "I don't need her concern," Jessica said. "I need her support. But she's never given me that, has she?" Dad set down his glass, harder than necessary. "That's enough. This is supposed to be a celebration." "You're right, Henry," Marcus said. "In fact, I have some connections at Elite. I'd be happy to look over the contract, make sure everything's in order." The predatory gleam in his eyes made my stomach turn. "I can review it too," I offered. "My firm handles entertainment law." "Your firm?" Jessica scoffed. "You're a paralegal, Val. Stop pretending to be something you're not." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom busied herself with her napkin, while Dad stared out the window, avoiding the tension. "I think," Marcus said smoothly, "what Jessica means is that she wants to handle this professionally, through proper channels." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Right. Proper channels, like your business dealings in Singapore last year." Marcus's facade cracked for just a moment, surprise and anger flashing across his features before he recovered. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, just looking out for family, right?" Jessica slammed her hands on the table. "Get out, just get out." "Jessica, please," Mom pleaded. "No, it's fine," I said, backing away. "I need some air anyway." As I walked out, I heard Dad's voice. "I don't know what's gotten into her lately. She used to be such a sweet girl." I made it to the dock before the tears came. Behind me, I could feel the ripples of emotion from the house. Jessica's triumph, Marcus's calculation, my parents' willful blindness. A text message lit up my phone. "Meet me at the Blue Room tomorrow, 8 p.m. Sam." I didn't recognize the number, but something about it felt right. The same way I could feel that the modeling contract was wrong, that Marcus was dangerous, that my family was walking into a trap they couldn't see. Fine, if they wouldn't listen to my warnings, I'd have to find another way to protect them, whether they wanted it or not. I wiped my eyes and stared out at the lake, where storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. Let them come. I was done being the sweet girl they used to know. The Blue Room was exactly what its name suggested. A dimly lit lounge, bathed in cobalt light. Sam sat at a corner table, her presence a steady anchor in the churning sea of emotions around us. I knew it was her before she even looked up. "You've been watching Jessica's finances," she said as I sat down. "Not a question. How did you—" "The same way you know when people are lying." She slid a manila folder across the table. "But you missed something important. Inside were bank statements, contracts, emails, all connected to Elite Models International." My hands trembled as I read through them. The numbers didn't add up. Hidden fees, predatory clauses, systematic exploitation. They're bleeding her dry, I whispered. And your future brother-in-law is orchestrating all of it. My stomach lurched. Marcus's involvement was there in black and white. Shell companies, offshore accounts, a pattern of targeting ambitious young models. Jessica won't believe me if I show her this. No, Sam agreed. She won't. 3 weeks later, I watched it all unravel, exactly as Sam had predicted. Jessica stood in our parents' living room, mascara streaming down her face, waving her phone like a weapon. They're saying I owe them $50,000. Her voice cracked. The contract said, "Let me see it." I reached for the papers, but she yanked them away. "Don't pretend you care now. You warned me about them, didn't you? You probably knew this would happen." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, his concern a perfect mask. But underneath, I felt his satisfaction, his careful manipulation. "Sweetheart, maybe we should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss," Jessica sobbed. "I'm ruined. My career is over before it began." Dad paced the room, his anger a living thing. "This is outrageous. We'll sue them." "The contract is ironclad," I said quietly. "I tried to tell you." "Shut up," Jessica screamed. "This is all your fault. You've always been jealous of me, always trying to hold me back." Mom wrung her hands. "Jessica, please." "No, she's right," Marcus interjected smoothly. "Val did try to warn her about the agency, almost as if she knew something was wrong." "How did you know, Val?" The room fell silent. I felt their suspicion, their readiness to believe the worst of me. "Because I did my research," I said. "Unlike some people." "Research?" Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Or inside information? You seem very well informed about our business practices." "Your business practices." The pieces clicked into place. "You're not just connected to elite models, you're one of them." Jessica's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" "Ask him about Singapore," I said. "Ask him about the other girls he's ruined." "That's enough," Dad's voice boomed. "Jessica is upset enough without your wild accusations." Marcus pulled Jessica closer. "I think your sister is just trying to drive a wedge between us, darling. She's always been unstable." "Get out," Jessica whispered. "Get out of my sight." I looked at each of them. Mom's averted eyes, Dad's rigid disapproval, Jessica's hatred, Marcus's subtle triumph. The weight of their emotions pressed against me like a physical force. "Fine," I said. "But when this all falls apart, remember that I tried to warn you." I was halfway to my car when Sam's text arrived. "Now you see the whole picture. Ready to do something about it?" I looked back at the house, at the family that had never understood me, never believed in me. Through the window, I could see Marcus comforting Jessica, playing the devoted fiancé while plotting her destruction. My phone buzzed again. "Meet me tomorrow, same place. I'll show you how to fight back." I got in my car, my hands steady for the first time all day. They wanted to paint me as the villain. Fine, I'd show them what a real villain could do. But first, I had some research to do about Marcus Sullivan's past. Something told me Singapore was just the beginning. Sam's apartment was a stark contrast to the polished facade of my family's world, all exposed brick and mismatched furniture. She sat cross-legged on a worn leather chair, studying me with unsettling intensity. "Your gift isn't just sensing emotions," she said. "It's about understanding the threads that connect them. Pull the right thread, and everything unravels." I traced the rim of my coffee mug. "Is that what happened to you?" "No, I was the thread someone else pulled." She leaned forward. "Tell me what you feel when you think about Marcus." "Darkness, calculation, like watching a spider build its web." "Good, now close your eyes. Push past the surface. What's underneath?" I did as she instructed, reaching out with that extra sense I'd always tried to suppress. "Fear. He's afraid of someone. A man. Someone who knows what he did in Singapore. His brother," Sam said quietly. "Derek Hayes." My eyes snapped open. "How do you know that name?" "Because Derek came to me first. He's been tracking Marcus's schemes for years." She pulled out her phone, showing me a photo of a man with Marcus's features but harder eyes. "He wants to meet you." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. "You can't avoid them forever," Sam said. "Watch me." "No, you need to go home. See what's happening. Use what I've taught you." The house was quiet when I arrived, but the emotional residue hit me like a physical force. Desperation, anger, fear. Jessica sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, her makeup smeared. "Come to gloat?" she asked without looking up. "You called me. Marcus says he can fix this. He has connections, investors who can help clear my debt." Her voice cracked. "But Dad won't co-sign the loan." I moved closer, letting her emotions wash over me. There was something new there, something fragile, doubt. "What did Marcus tell you about Singapore?" She stiffened. "That's none of your business." "It is when he's using the same playbook. Find someone vulnerable, offer help, then trap them with debt and blackmail. You don't know anything about him. But Derek does." Jessica's head snapped up. "Who?" "His brother, the one he never mentions." I pulled out my phone, showed her the photo. "The one who can prove everything I'm saying." Her hands trembled as she stared at the image. "This is another trick. You're trying to ruin this for me, just like you ruin everything." Am I, or am I the only one telling you the truth? The front door opened. Marcus's emotional signature slithered into the room before he did. Triumph and anticipation, quickly masked by concern when he saw me. "Everything all right, darling?" He moved to Jessica's side, but his eyes never left me. "I didn't expect to find you here, Val." I stood my ground, remembering Sam's lessons. Pull the right thread. "How's Singapore, Marcus? Still profitable?" His mask slipped for just a second. Beneath the surface, panic bloomed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Maybe we should ask Derek." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Marcus's hand tightened on Jessica's shoulder. "My brother is a troubled man. He's been spreading lies. The only lie here is you." I turned to Jessica. "Ask him about the others, the girls before you. Ask him what happened to them." "That's enough." Marcus stepped forward, but I felt his fear spike. "Jessica, she's trying to manipulate you, just like she always has." Jessica looked between us, confusion and terror warring in her emotions. "Marcus, what is she talking about? What girls? Don't listen to her." "Or maybe," I cut in, "you should ask why Derek's been gathering evidence against his own brother for the past 3 years." Marcus lunged for me, mask finally shattering. In that moment, Jessica saw what I'd sensed all along. The predator beneath the charm. I backed toward the door, my purpose accomplished. The seed of doubt was planted. The right thread pulled. "You'll regret this," Marcus snarled. I smiled, channeling everything Sam had taught me. "No, Marcus, you will." As I left, I felt Jessica's emotions shift. Fear giving way to something stronger, something like clarity. The game had changed. Now it was time to meet Derek Hayes. Derek Hayes had his brother's face, but none of his polish. He sat across from me in the dimly lit bar, his emotions a storm of guilt and determination. "Singapore wasn't the beginning," he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "But it's where I started keeping records." I picked up the drive, feeling its weight like a loaded gun. "Why come forward now?" "Because Marcus is getting sloppy, desperate." Derek's fingers drummed against his glass. "He's never brought someone home before, never gotten engaged." "You think Jessica's different?" "I think she's bait." His eyes met mine. "For your father." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Henry Thompson, the respected business mogul, would make a perfect mark for Marcus's biggest cane yet. My phone buzzed. A text from Sam. "Your sister's at my place. She needs to talk." "I have to go," I told Derek, standing. "Val." He caught my wrist, his touch electric. "Be careful. Marcus knows you're on to him." Jessica looked small, curled up on Sam's couch, her designer clothes wrinkled, her makeup smeared. The moment I walked in, her emotions hit me like a tidal wave. Fear, shame, and underneath it all, a desperate need for connection. "The contracts," she whispered. "I found more of them. Other girls, so many other girls. Sam stood in the kitchen doorway, watching silently. She'd known this moment would come. How much did you lose? I asked. Everything. Jessica's laugh was hollow. But that's not even the worst part. I heard Marcus on the phone last night, talking about Dad's company, about leveraging assets and shell corporations, and she broke off, choking back tears. He's planning something bigger, I said. Dad won't listen to me. He thinks Marcus is brilliant, that this merger will save the company from bankruptcy. She looked up at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. You were right. About everything. And I need your help. The words I'd waited so long to hear, but now they felt like ash in my mouth. It's not that simple anymore, I said. Why not? Before I could answer, my phone exploded with notifications, emails, texts, missed calls, all from the family. Turn on the news, Sam said quietly. The financial reporter's voice filled the room. Allegations of fraud and market manipulation have surfaced against Thompson Industries. Sources claim CEO Henry Thompson has been involved in a complex scheme with notorious financial predator Marcus Sullivan. Jessica's scream caught in her throat. On screen, our father was being led out of his office in handcuffs, Marcus walking free beside the investigators, playing the role of whistleblower perfectly. He's framing Dad, Jessica whispered. This was his plan all along. My hands shook as I opened Derek's USB drive on my laptop. Documents, photos, recordings, everything we needed to expose Marcus. Everything that could save our father, but the timestamp on the earliest files stopped me cold. These go back 5 years, I said. Before Singapore, before the modeling agency, I turned to Jessica. Before Dad invested in Marcus's first venture. What are you saying? Dad knew. The truth felt like broken glass in my throat. He knew what Marcus was doing to those girls. He helped cover it up, probably profited from it. Jessica's denial hit me in waves, but underneath I felt her recognition. She'd known too, on some level. We all had. Sam stepped forward. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I stared at the USB drive, feeling the weight of every decision, every moment of resentment and revenge that had led to this. Expose Marcus, and our father goes down too. Stay silent, and more people get hurt. We need to talk to Derek, I said finally. But first, we need to get Mom somewhere safe. Marcus won't stop at Dad. Jessica nodded, standing straighter. I know where she is. I can... My phone rang. Marcus's number. Don't answer it, Jessica pleaded, but I could feel it. The turning point, the moment everything would change. I picked up the phone. Hello, Val. Marcus's voice was silk over steel. I think it's time we had a real conversation about family loyalty, don't you? Behind me, Jessica clutched Sam's arm. In my hand, Derek's USB drive felt like it was burning. The game had changed. Now I had to decide what I was willing to sacrifice to win it. Marcus chose the restaurant carefully. Expensive enough to keep scenes to a minimum. Public enough to prevent violence. I sat across from him, feeling the smug satisfaction rolling off him in waves. Your father made it too easy, he said, cutting into his steak. So desperate to protect his legacy, he never questioned where the money came from. And Jessica, was she just collateral damage? Jessica was a gift, the perfect way to get close to your family, he smiled. Though I admit, I underestimated you. That's a mistake I won't make twice. The waiter refilled our wine glasses. Through the restaurant's windows, I could see Derek waiting in his car across the street, ready with the evidence that could destroy Marcus. One signal from me would set everything in motion. What do you want? Simple. Destroy the evidence you and my brother have gathered. All of it. His emotions shifted, darkening. Or I release proof of your father's involvement in everything. The trafficking, the money laundering, all of it. You'd go down too. Please. He dabbed his lips with a napkin. I'm very good at disappearing. Your family, on the other hand. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Mom's missing. Her car's still at the house, but she's gone. Marcus watched my face, reading my reaction. Insurance, he said softly. She's comfortable, for now. Your mother always did prefer white wine over red, didn't she? The rage that surged through me was almost blinding. If you hurt her, that depends entirely on you. He slid a phone across the table. Call Derek. Tell him to bring everything he has, now. I looked out at Derek's car, my hand hovering over the phone. Everything we'd worked for, all the evidence we'd gathered, gone with one call. Tick-tock, Val. Your mother isn't getting any younger. I picked up the phone, dialed Derek's number, watched him answer in his car across the street. Bring it, I said. All of it. Marcus's satisfaction spiked, but underneath I felt something else, a flicker of uncertainty. He was watching me too closely, reading my face for signs of deception. Derek entered the restaurant, carrying a laptop bag. The moment he sat down, Marcus's men appeared at the other tables. I'd sensed them earlier, their predatory emotions marking them as hired muscle. The USB drive, Marcus demanded. Derek placed it on the table. It's encrypted. The password. I met Derek's eyes, nodded slightly. He typed something into the laptop, and the drive's contents appeared on screen. Marcus leaned forward, scanning the files. His triumph turned to confusion, then rage. These are fake. He grabbed Derek's collar. Where are the real files? Already sent to every major news outlet, I said quietly, along with a recording of everything you just said about my mother. Marcus's hand moved toward his jacket, but Derek was faster. In seconds, Marcus was pinned to the table, his own men frozen as police officers emerged from the kitchen and dining room. Your mistake, I said, standing, was thinking I came here to negotiate. Your mother is safe at Sam's apartment, has been all day. I leaned closer, letting him feel every ounce of my contempt. You're not the only one who can play games, Marcus. As the police led him away, my phone buzzed again. Jessica, Dad's talking, telling them everything. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. We'd won, but the cost was devastating. Our father would go to prison. Our family's name would be ruined. Jessica's life was in shambles. Val, Derek touched my arm. You did what you had to do. But as I watched Marcus being led away in handcuffs, his emotions a maelstrom of hatred and promises of revenge, I wondered if I'd only made things worse. If my desire for justice, or was it revenge, had destroyed the very things I'd tried to protect. It's not over, I said. No, Derek agreed. But whatever comes next, you're not facing it alone. Outside, rain began to fall. Somewhere across town, my mother was safe but traumatized. My sister was picking up the pieces of her shattered life. My father was confessing to crimes that would destroy our family's legacy forever. And I was standing in the wreckage, finally understanding that sometimes victory feels exactly like defeat. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when Marcus's bail hearing ended. I felt his rage before I saw him. A toxic cloud of hatred and desperation cutting through the chaos. He spotted me across the plaza, his mask of composure cracking. You've ruined everything, he snarled, shoving past his lawyer. Was it worth it? Derek stepped between us, but I held up my hand. Let him speak. I want to hear what he has to say. Your father's going to prison. Your sister's reputation is destroyed. Your family name is mud. Marcus's smile was razor sharp. And you think you've won? No one's won here, I said quietly. Oh, but someone has. He pulled out his phone, showed me a news alert. My blood ran cold as I read the headline. Thompson Industries sold to overseas investor. You didn't think I'd have a backup plan? His satisfaction rolled over me in waves. Everything your father built, everything your family valued, it's all mine now, through shell companies, of course. Derek cursed under his breath. I felt his realization match my own. We'd been so focused on exposing Marcus's crimes, we'd missed his larger scheme. Val, Jessica's voice cut through the crowd. She ran up the courthouse steps, clutching papers. The transfer documents, Dad's signature, it's forged, Marcus finished. But good luck proving it before the sale closes in. He checked his watch. 30 minutes? The plaza spun around me. All our evidence, all our careful planning, and he'd still outmaneuvered us. I reached out with my ability, trying to read beneath his confidence. There, a flicker of something else. Fear. No. Anticipation. This isn't about money, I said slowly. This is about revenge. Finally figured it out. He stepped closer. Your father destroyed my family 15 years ago. Took everything we had. Now I'm returning the favor. Marcus, Derek's voice cracked. That's what this was all about. Dad's bankruptcy. He killed himself because of Henry Thompson. Marcus's composure shattered. And now history repeats itself. Poetic, isn't it? I closed my eyes, letting the emotions wash over me. Marcus's vindictive triumph, Derek's horror, Jessica's despair. But underneath it all, something else caught my attention. A familiar emotional signature, approaching fast. You forgot something, I said, opening my eyes. About history repeating itself. And what's that? Me. Sam emerged from the crowd, flanked by federal agents. Remember Singapore, Marcus? Your first big scam? I was there, one of your victims, and I've been tracking you ever since. Marcus's confidence crumbled as Sam held up a recorder. Your confession about the forged signatures, your admission of the shell companies, all recorded and transmitted live to the SEC. You can't. We already have. Sam cut him off. The sale's been frozen. Your accounts are locked. It's over. Marcus lunged for Sam, but Derek caught him, pinning him as agents moved in. I felt the exact moment Marcus's mind broke, his carefully constructed plans dissolving into chaos. You're just like them, he screamed at Derek, betraying your own blood. No, Derek said quietly. I'm honoring it by stopping you from becoming a monster. As the agents led Marcus away, Jessica touched my arm. Did you know about Sam? Not until today. I watched Sam talking to the federal agents. She found me because she sensed what I could do, what I might become. And what's that? I thought about revenge, about justice, about the fine line between them. Someone who remembers that saving people is more important than destroying them. Jessica's emotions shifted. Grief, relief, and something like hope. What happens now? We rebuild, I said. But differently this time. No more secrets, no more lies. Together, she asked. And for the first time in years, I felt her sincerity. Together. As reporters swarmed around us, I felt the weight of everything we'd lost, and everything we might still save. Marcus had wanted to repeat history, to perpetuate a cycle of revenge and destruction. Instead, he'd given us the chance to break it. Sam caught my eye across the plaza and nodded slightly. She'd known all along that this wasn't just about stopping Marcus. It was about choosing what kind of person I wanted to be. The kind who destroys, or the kind who heals. I'd finally made my choice. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and regret. Dad sat across from me, his orange jumpsuit, a jarring contrast to the expensive suits he once wore. His emotions were muted now, dulled by months of incarceration, but I still felt the weight of his shame. The company's recovering, I said, filling the silence. The board appointed Derek as interim CEO. And Jessica, starting over, she's teaching at a community dance studio. I paused. She's good at it. He nodded, his fingers tracing patterns on the metal table. I kept thinking I was protecting you girls, building something that would last. His laugh was hollow. Instead, I helped create Marcus. You're not the only one who confused revenge with justice. His eyes met mine for the first time. When did you first know about your ability? Always. But no one wanted to believe me. No, he agreed quietly. It was easier to pretend you were just oversensitive, especially when you tried to warn us about Marcus. A guard passed by, keys jingling. Through the window, I could see Derek waiting in the parking lot, his steady presence, an anchor in the storm. I have something for you, Dad said, sliding a folded paper across the table. My confession, the complete one, about Marcus's father. My hands trembled as I read. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. A deliberate destruction of the Sullivan family, driven by fear and greed. Marcus's revenge hadn't been random. It had been inevitable. Why show me this now? Because you deserve to know that none of this started with you, or Marcus, or even me. He leaned forward. It's a cycle, Val, and someone has to be strong enough to break it. I folded the paper, tucked it away. That's why I'm here, to tell you I'm done. Done? With revenge. With trying to fix everything. With carrying the weight of other people's choices. His relief was palpable. And Jessica, we're talking, really talking, maybe for the first time. I stood up. She's coming to dinner next week, with Mom. Good. He hesitated. Val, I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. For not seeing you. For making you feel like you had to prove yourself. I know. I touched his hand briefly. That's why I can walk away now. Outside, Derek pushed off his car as I approached. You okay? No, I admitted. But I will be. My phone buzzed. A text from Sam. Ready for your first client. Since Marcus's arrest, word had spread about my ability to read people and situations. Companies wanted my consulting services. Law firms sought my insight. I could use my gift openly now, helping instead of hurting. You sure about this? Derek asked, reading the text over my shoulder. About helping people navigate their emotions instead of manipulating them. Yeah. I looked back at the prison. Someone has to break the cycle. We drove in comfortable silence until Derek spoke again. Jessica called. She wants us all to meet at the lake house this weekend. The old me would have felt threatened, would have searched for hidden motives or traps. Instead, I let myself feel the simple truth of Jessica's emotions from our last conversation. Hope, regret, and a genuine desire to rebuild. Tell her yes. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Marcus had been denied appeal. His empire was truly finished. But as I closed the notification, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a quiet certainty that I'd chosen the right path. You never told me, Derek said softly. What made you finally stop wanting revenge? I thought about Dad's confession in my pocket, about Marcus's destroyed family, about the endless cycle of pain creating more pain. I realized revenge is just another way of letting someone else control your story. I watched the city scroll past. I wanted to write my own. Derek's hand found mine as we turned toward home. Behind us, the prison disappeared into the distance, taking with it the last echoes of the person I used to be. The future wasn't clear. Family wounds don't heal overnight. Trust takes time to rebuild. But for the first time, I felt truly free. Not from my ability to sense others' emotions, but from the need to use them as weapons. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the fight. It's in choosing not to fight at all.